Patricia Worby, and I'm here to talk to you today about EFT. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, which is something you may also know as tapping. It's a very interesting tool which I've been using for a number of years now, and it aims to help you release emotions that are trapped in the body. Now, that may sound a bit far-fetched, so let me explain a little bit more about what happens when you have a situation that's difficult in your life, something that we might think of as traumatic. In that situation, something is stored in your memory, in the limbic system of your brain. And your limbic system is very, very linked with certain parts of your body via the autonomic nervous system. And as you might guess from the name, autonomic means it sort of controls it without you having to think about it. So it will control things like your blood pressure, your pH of your blood, how well you're breathing, at what rate. It's generally concerned with keeping you functioning without your conscious involvement. And that limbic system is also very connected to the emotional component of your life. So whether you're happy or sad, whether you feel like you've done something terrible, you have shame, you have betrayal, anger maybe because something's happened that's really displeased you. That's very common in childhood, obviously, where you're not in control of your life so much, especially between the ages of 0 and 7. And in these years, the brain is still immature and it's still forming. And a lot of these implicit memories that are laid down from your experiences at that age get sort of stuck. They get stuck as a memory in the body. And EFT is a fantastic tool for accessing those memories and allowing you to resolve them as over. Because the thing about the limbic system is it doesn't know time. It has no concept of time. It's in an eternal present. And if you've had a series of events in your childhood or in later years, perhaps your teenage years, which have been difficult, it sort of keeps them in a filing system to bring up during difficult situations in your current life. And it just sort of, it's like a memo. It just replays the same feelings and the same emotions over and over. So this can be very, very distracting if you're trying to, say, negotiate a pay rise, or you're having trouble in your relationship, but all these old memories keep coming up and they keep making you respond in ways that aren't particularly helpful. Now, I've also found that clearing these emotional residues is a great way of leaping forward in your own self-discovery in your life, enabling you to tackle things in a different way and be free to choose your responses rather than operating pretty much on automatic pilot. The other reason it's really, really helpful is in physical conditions. A lot of diseases have emotions at their core, and we often find that these common emotions of shame, deep sadness, maybe from a loss of a loved one, or the lack of connection with the people that you were supposed to have had unconditional love from, your parents. That's a very deep one, and I consider that to be a developmental trauma, and it's incredibly common. In fact, probably only something like 20 to 30% of people in the average population have a really secure childhood base. And this has deep consequences for how they feel about themselves. And it's true for me also that because it wasn't necessarily present for me when I was growing up, you have a sense of not being worthy, not having great self-esteem, and you tend to overwork as compensation, or you find yourself easily addicted to things, whether that be shopping or gambling or drink or whatever. But it can be a real issue because you're unable to control your emotions, to regulate yourself, to know that you can feel and still be safe. And EFT is a wonderful way of unblocking those deeply held feelings that you haven't been able to access by talking. Talking doesn't really touch it because it's a different part of the brain. So EFT then, what is it? How do I do it? It's basically tapping on parts of the head and face. I use certain tapping points. Not everybody uses these ones. Some people add in fingers, other people do under the arm. I don't bother with that one. And I don't get too hung up on the amount of times you tap. I don't think that's important. What's really important is what you're feeling while you're tapping. And that's why it's really helpful to work with somebody who is experienced and knows what to look for. You can tell when you're working with someone whether they're connected with what they're feeling. You can watch their eye movements and see, are they checking in with themselves? Do they believe what they've just said, or is that a real challenge for them? And you can subtly change the wording. So while you're tapping, you're actually saying certain things, like this pain, this sadness, I'm willing to release and let it go. Now, if saying that actually causes you some distress, it's really obvious, because the eyes will shift. And you might not believe it's time to let it go, because your brain may have a really good reason for holding on to it. And it's things like that that we have to work together with and find out what's closer to you for, in terms of the truth. Is it that I'm willing to believe I can let it go? I'm doing that now. I'm letting it go. I don't need it anymore. It's an old story. These statements, which are called setup statements, are very, very important. They should be present tense. So you don't say something like, I'm going to let it go, because the brain, this part of the brain, as I said, it's very automatic. It just thinks, oh, I don't need to do anything there because that's in the future. So you need to be really sure that what you're saying is present tense and it resonates with you. It makes sense. It's honest. It's authentic. If you start saying, I love myself, which is one that you'll find a lot on EFT sites, I love and accept myself, and you don't, that's an internal conflict, and your body will register that, and it's unlikely to be successful. So we have to say, I'm willing to believe I can learn to love myself, and I'm doing that now. It's a much gentler way of approaching the outcome that you want, which is obviously to learn to value yourself in the way that you would hope other people value you, people that love you, and learn to love yourself well and deeply. But this is a lifetime's work. What EFT does is it speeds up the process. It enables the body to retain a connection with sensation and feeling while your mind grapples with the language of those feelings. There are various theories as to how it works. If you look at sort of traditional understandings, it's believed to be on meridians, and that sort of rejigs your energy. My preferred view is that it actually helps the nerves which are in your head and neck, from your vagus and other cranial nerves, to actually register information, and that helps all of those parts of your brain which are linked to your brain stem and your limbic system to start coordinating better. After all, that's what a child learns when it's very, very young, in those first vital months of life, when a baby is being held by its mother, and she's touching and she's cooing and she's smiling and doing all sorts of things which allow that baby's visual and auditory and sensory system to attune and understand that it's safe and it's loved. And this is kind of what we, I think, are recreating in adult life when we do EFT with another person, or you can do it on your own, but you have to really be able to feel your feelings when you do that, and it takes a bit of practice. So if any of that sounds interesting and you'd like to have a go at releasing some old emotions that might be holding you back, if you've got an inkling that that's true for you, I haven't yet met anybody who's resolved all of their emotions from their childhood, so it's quite likely. Do get in touch. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Details on my website, alchemytherapies.co.uk. Bye for now.